The black SUV skidded sideways as its front tire burst with a loud bang, sending water splashing across the empty street. Within seconds, more luxury vehicles stopped behind it. Men dressed in black suits rushed out into the heavy rain, their eyes moving in every direction as they formed a tight circle around the man stepping out of the middle vehicle. "Boss, please stay inside," one bodyguard pleaded. "We'll fix it in a few minutes." The tall Korean man ignored him. Rain soaked his expensive black coat as he looked down the deserted street. His face carried no fear, only quiet patience. He had just finished a tense meeting that could decide the future of his family's empire. His head was filled with problems that no amount of money could solve. Another bodyguard walked over. "Sir, another vehicle is on the way. We only need 10 minutes. Before the boss could answer, he suddenly stopped walking. He lifted his head slightly. Something drifted through the cold rain. A sweet smell. Warm butter. Fresh vanilla. Brown sugar. And something else. Caramel. His eyes slowly closed. He breathed in once more. Then again, the smell wrapped around him like an old memory he had almost forgotten. "Where is that coming from?" he asked softly. The bodyguards looked at one another. One sniffed the air. I think it's from over there." He pointed toward a tiny roadside shop with a faded wooden sign hanging above its door. The lights inside were warm. Steam covered part of the front window. A handwritten sign read, "Fresh cakes." One bodyguard quickly stepped forward. "Boss, it could be dangerous." Another added, "Please let us check first." The Korean man did not answer. Instead, he walked toward the little shop. His security team surrounded him from every side. The tiny bell above the door rang as he entered. The warm air hit his face immediately. The smell became even stronger. Fresh cake had just come out of the oven. For the first time that day, the hard lines on his face softened. Behind the counter stood a woman wearing a simple flour-covered apron. She was an obese black woman with kind eyes and flour dusted across her cheeks. A loose scarf covered part of her hair. She looked up in surprise as 6 men in black suits entered her tiny bakery. "Oh my," she whispered. One bodyguard looked around carefully. Another checked the back room. The woman held both hands together nervously. I'm sorry. We're almost closing." The Korean man walked toward the glass display. Only 3 cakes remained. Simple, beautiful, made with care, not expensive, not decorated to impress wealthy customers. Just honest baking. "What cake is this?" he asked. She smiled shyly. "Vanilla, caramel butter cake." He looked at it quietly. "I baked it this morning." One bodyguard reached into his pocket. "We'll buy the whole shop." The woman blinked. The whole shop?" The Korean man lifted one hand. His guard became silent. The boss looked at her again. "May I have one slice?" She looked confused. "Just one?" "Yes." Her hands moved carefully as she cut a generous slice. She placed it on a clean white plate. "I hope you like it." He accepted the plate himself. Every bodyguard watched closely. He picked up the fork, cut off a small piece, placed it into his mouth. Everything stopped. His chewing slowed. The rain outside seemed to disappear. The sounds inside the bakery faded away. His breathing changed. His eyes remained fixed on nothing. Then, a single tear rolled down his face. No one moved. No one spoke. The bodyguards looked at each other in complete shock. They had protected him for years. None of them had ever seen him cry. Not when he buried his father. Not during violent battles. Not after betrayals. Never. The woman behind the counter became frightened. I'm sorry." She quickly stepped forward. "Is something wrong with the cake?" He slowly shook his head. "No." His voice was barely above a whisper. "It is perfect." Another tear slipped down his cheek. The room remained completely silent. He swallowed carefully before looking at the woman. "What is your name?" She hesitated. "My name is Chloe." He repeated it quietly. "Chloe." Then he looked toward his chief bodyguard. "Find out everything about her." The guard nodded immediately. "Yes, boss." Chloe's eyes became wide. I didn't do anything wrong." The Korean man placed the empty plate gently on the counter. "You did something no one has done in 20 years." She looked confused. "I don't understand." He smiled very faintly. "You brought my mother back, if only for one bite." Without another word, he turned and walked toward the door. The rain continued pouring outside. The convoy disappeared into the darkness. Chloe remained standing behind the counter, holding the empty plate with trembling hands. What just happened? She whispered to herself. If you're enjoying this story so far, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. It really helps the channel grow and lets you enjoy more emotional stories like this every week. That night, Chloe could not sleep. She replayed the strange visit over and over in her mind. Who was that man? Why'd he cried? Why did powerful men follow every word he said? She finally drifted to sleep just before sunrise. But while she slept, the Korean man's investigation had already begun. Back in the luxury mansion overlooking the city, dozens of photographs covered a large conference table. The chief bodyguard stood before his boss. We've begun looking into the woman. The boss remained by the window. Tell me everything. We only have a little information so far. Go on. Her name is Chloe Johnson, 32 years old. She has no husband, no children. She rents the bakery month by month. The boss remained silent. The guard continued. Business is poor. Why? People don't buy from her. The boss slowly turned around. They don't buy because the shop is small. The guard lowered his eyes. No, boss. Then why? They laugh at her because of her size. The room became quiet. Another guard spoke carefully. Many customers walk in, look at her, then walk away without buying anything. The Korean man's jaw tightened. What about those who actually taste her cakes? The guard answered without looking up. They almost always come back. The boss walked toward the table. What else? She has entered several baking competitions, and she was rejected before judging even began. On what grounds? No official reason. The room fell silent again. The Korean man looked out the window toward the sleeping city. They judge her before they judged her work, he said quietly. No wonder. He stopped speaking. Then, in a calm voice that made every guard straighten immediately, he gave a single order. Tomorrow morning. He paused. Bring Chloe to me. The following morning, Chloe woke before sunrise, just as she always did. The bakery was still dark when she tied her apron around her waist and switched on the old oven. The soft hum of the machine made her smile. You and I are still together, she whispered as she gently touched its worn metal door. One more day. She mixed flour, butter, eggs, sugar, and fresh vanilla with slow, careful hands. Every movement carried years of practice. As the batter settled into the pans, she closed her eyes. Grandma, she said softly, I hope I'm making you proud. Almost every morning began the same way. She baked. She prayed. She hoped. Then she waited. An hour later, the smell of fresh cake drifted onto the sidewalk. People slowed down. Some smiled. Some even stepped toward the door. But the moment they looked through the window and saw Chloe behind the counter, many simply turned around and kept walking. A young woman wearing expensive clothes laughed as she passed by with her friend. I've heard the cakes are good. Her friend looked through the glass. They probably are. So why aren't you buying one? The first woman shrugged. I don't know. Seeing her bake just takes away my appetite. Both women laughed before walking away. Chloe heard every word. She lowered her head and quietly wiped the counter. An elderly man entered a few minutes later. Morning, Miss Chloe. Her face brightened. Good morning, Mr. Harris. I'll take my usual. She smiled. 2 slices. You already know me. She packed the cake carefully. Mr. Harris reached into his pocket. Before paying, he looked at her kindly. Don't let foolish people steal your smile. She forced a little laugh. I'm trying. He nodded. They don't know what they're missing. After he left, the shop became quiet again. Nearly 2 hours passed before another customer entered. Then another. Business remained painfully slow. Around noon, 3 black SUVs stopped outside. Every person on the sidewalk turned to look. The same men dressed in black stepped out. Chloe froze. Oh no. The bakery door opened. The chief bodyguard walked inside. Miss Chloe. She swallowed. Why, yes. Our boss wishes to see you. Her hands began shaking. I haven't done anything wrong. No. Then why does he want me? He didn't explain. I can't leave my bakery. We'll wait. She looked around the nearly empty shop. There were only 6 cakes left. No customers. No reason to believe anyone would come before evening. She slowly untied her apron. I'll only be gone a little while. The bodyguard nodded respectfully. We'll bring you back. As she stepped outside, dozens of people watched from across the street. Some whispered. Others took pictures with their phones. One woman shook her head. Those men can't be here for her. They probably have the wrong person. Another answered. No, they called her by name. Chloe heard every word. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment. Inside the SUV, she sat quietly. No one spoke during the drive. The city slowly disappeared behind them. Large buildings gave way to quiet roads lined with tall trees. Finally, enormous black gates opened. The vehicle entered one of the most beautiful estates Chloe had ever seen. A massive mansion stood at the center. Elegant gardens stretched in every direction. She whispered to herself, I don't belong here. One of the guards heard her. Our boss believes you do. She looked at him in surprise. The guards simply smiled. They led her through tall wooden doors into a grand dining room. Everything looked perfect. Crystal lights, long polished table, fresh flowers. Yet the room felt strangely empty. The Korean Mafia boss stood near a large window with his hands behind his back. He turned as Chloe entered. You came. She nodded nervously. You asked for me. He pulled out a chair. Please sit. I'd rather stand. You are not my prisoner. I know. Then why are you afraid? She looked down. I'm standing inside a mansion owned by a man whose guards travel with enough people to protect a president. For the first time, he laughed. It was quiet, short, but real. You are honest. I don't know how to be anything else. He motioned again. Please. This time she sat. A housekeeper entered carrying 2 plates. Both held slices of Chloe's vanilla caramel cake. She looked confused. You saved the cake? I asked my men to buy every slice. She blinked. Why? I wanted another taste. He picked up his fork. So did it still taste the same? She asked. He took one bite, closed his eyes, then smiled. Yes. Relief washed over Chloe's face. I was worried yesterday. Might have been luck. It wasn't luck. She smiled shyly. My grandmother used to say love is the most important ingredient. What was your grandmother's name? Lillian. His eyes paused for a brief moment. Lillian. The name sounded familiar, though he could not remember why. He looked back at Chloe. Tell me about yourself. There isn't much to tell. I decide that. She took a slow breath. I lost my parents when I was young. I'm sorry. My grandmother raised me. What did she do? She baked. And she taught you. Everything I know. She smiled as memories filled her eyes. She used to wake me before sunrise. Feel the dough, Chloe said softly, repeating her grandmother's words. Don't rush it. Cakes remember the hands that make them. The boss listened carefully. When she became sick, I promised her I would open the bakery she never had. Did you keep your promise? I tried. What happened? She laughed sadly. No bank wanted to help me. So how did you open your shop? She looked around the beautiful room before answering. I sold almost everything I owned. My grandmother's jewelry, my little car, my furniture. I even worked night shifts cleaning offices, so I could buy one old oven. The room became silent. And now, she smiled without joy. I barely earn enough to pay rent. He studied her face. You could have quit. I wanted to. What stopped you? She answered without thinking. My grandmother believed someone, somewhere, would one day taste my cake and see me before judging me. A long silence followed. Finally, he said quietly, she was right. Chloe looked at him. I don't understand. You see a businessman. She nodded. The world sees someone to fear. Another pause. But when I tasted your cake, he looked down at the slice on his plate. I remember being a little boy sitting beside my mother. His voice softened. She laughed while feeding me cake. It was the last happy birthday we spent together. My mother died a few months later. Chloe's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry. I spent 20 years trying to remember that taste. He looked directly at her. Yesterday, you gave it back to me. She could not speak. Instead, she quietly wiped a tear from her cheek. He reached into his jacket and placed a folded document on the table. I have a proposal. She looked at it, but did not touch it. What is it? A contract. She frowned. I don't sign papers without reading them. Good. She slowly opened it. Her eyes widened. Her breathing stopped. She looked up. You want me to become the head baker for my family. The salary printed on the page was more money than she had earned in several years. She stared at the number again, then quietly closed the contract. I'm sorry. The boss looked surprised. You refuse. Yes. One bodyguard almost dropped the tray he was carrying. No one refused their boss. Not ever. The Korean man remained calm. May I ask why? Chloe stood. Because I worked too hard to become someone else's employee. She smiled politely. My dream isn't to bake in a mansion. She placed the contract back in front of him. My dream is to own a bakery where every child feels welcome, where no one is judged, where people leave happier than they arrived. She took one slow breath. I can't give up that dream. For several long seconds, nobody spoke. Then, the Korean Mafia boss slowly smiled. It was the first genuine smile anyone in the room had seen from him in years. Interesting, he said. Very few people had ever told him no. Instead of feeling insulted, he found himself admiring the courage standing before him. He rose from his chair, looked Chloe in the eye, and said quietly, Then perhaps, I need to make you a different offer. He walked to the window, watching the rain begin to fall again. Without turning around, he added, I won't ask you to work for me. I'll ask you to let me help build the bakery you've dreamed about. Chloe's heart pounded. She had spent years praying for an opportunity like this. But deep inside, another voice whispered, Nothing this generous comes without a price. She looked at the powerful man standing before her and wondered one thing. What would he ask for in return? Chloe remained silent. The rain tapped gently against the tall windows as she looked from the Korean Mafia boss to the contract lying untouched on the table. She had dreamed about help for years. She had prayed for someone to believe in her. Yet now that the opportunity stood in front of her, fear wrapped itself around her heart. She finally spoke. You said you want to help me build my bakery. I do. Why? The boss answered without hesitation. Because your gift deserves to be seen. She slowly shook her head. That can't be the only reason. It isn't. He folded his hands behind his back. You reminded me that I still have a heart. The word surprised everyone in the room. Even his chief bodyguard lowered his eyes. The boss continued. For many years, people have only wanted something from me. Money, power, protection. They smile because they fear me. They obey because they fear me. But yesterday, he looked directly at Chloe. You handed me a piece of cake without knowing who I was. You expected nothing. You simply wanted someone to enjoy your work. Chloe smiled gently. My grandmother always said food should make people feel loved. The boss nodded. I felt exactly that. She looked down. I still don't understand why someone as powerful as you would spend time helping someone like me. He gave a calm answer. Because power means nothing if it cannot change another person's life. The room became quiet again. Chloe took a slow breath. If I accepted your help, you would still own your bakery. You would make every decision. You would hire your own workers. I would not interfere. She looked at him carefully. And what do you receive? He smiled. One fresh slice of cake every Sunday. Chloe laughed before she could stop herself. You crossed an entire city just for cake. No. He smiled again. I crossed the city for peace. Another silence followed. For the first time since arriving, Chloe felt her fear begin to fade. Still, something inside her remained cautious. I need time. You have it. I don't make important decisions quickly. I respect that. She picked up her handbag. I should go back to my shop. I'll have my men take you. As they walked toward the entrance, one elderly housekeeper hurried after Chloe. Miss Chloe. She turned. Yes. The elderly woman gently held both of Chloe's hands. I've worked in this house for 23 years. Chloe smiled politely. The woman continued. I haven't seen him smile like that since his mother died. Chloe didn't know what to say. The housekeeper squeezed her hand softly. Thank you. The ride back felt shorter. When the SUV stopped outside the bakery, Chloe stepped out quietly. But she immediately noticed something strange. A crowd had gathered. People whispered as she approached. One man pointed. That's her. The woman who left in those expensive cars. A young reporter pushed through the crowd. Miss, she held out a microphone. Can we ask you a few questions? Chloe looked confused. What? Were you arrested? No. Are you working for the Korean businessman? I don't know what you mean. Is it true he offered to buy your bakery? Chloe's eyes widened. Who told you that? The reporter smiled. So it's true. I never said that. She hurried inside and locked the door. Her hands trembled. How did everyone find out? Across the street, another bakery owner watched everything through his window. His name was Victor. He had owned the largest bakery in the neighborhood for nearly 15 years. Business had been slow lately. Now people were gathering outside Chloe's tiny shop instead of his. His face darkened. This is impossible. His assistant looked outside. Should we be worried? Victor clenched his jaw. One lucky customer doesn't make her special. But people are talking. They'll stop. What if they don't? Victor looked at Chloe's bakery. They will. His voice carried a dangerous calm. I'll make sure of it. That evening, Chloe finished cleaning the bakery. She counted the day's earnings. Only enough to cover ingredients. Not enough for rent. She sighed. I can't keep living like this. Just then, someone knocked softly. It was Mr. Harris. The elderly customer smiled warmly. I brought you supper. You didn't have to. I know. He handed her a small container. I heard some important people visited today. She laughed nervously. So did the whole city. He sat down. You look troubled. I don't know what to do. She told him everything. The meeting. The offer. The promise to build her dream bakery. Mr. Harris listened without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned back. Do you trust him? I don't know. Did he threaten you? No. Did he treat you with respect? Yes. Did he listen when you spoke? Yes. Then what scares you? Chloe looked out the window. I'm afraid of owing someone something. Mr. Harris nodded slowly. That's a fair fear. She whispered. What if one day he asks for something I can't give? The old man smiled. Then don't promise anything today. She looked at him. Take one step at a time. People earn trust. They don't receive it all at once. She thought about those words long after he left. Late that night, the Korean Mafia boss sat alone in his private office. His chief bodyguard entered. Boss, what is it? We finished investigating Chloe. He looked up. Tell me, everything she said today was true. No debts, no criminal history, no hidden business partners, no lies. The bodyguard placed a thin folder on the desk. There's one thing. The boss opened it. Inside was an old photograph. A much younger Chloe stood beside an elderly woman. Both smiled proudly in front of a tiny kitchen. The boss picked up the picture. Her grandmother. Yes. We learned her name. What was it? Lillian Brooks. The boss suddenly became still. His fingers tightened around the photograph. Lillian. He whispered the name again. Then memories flashed across his mind. A warm kitchen. His mother laughing. An older black woman placing a cake onto the table. A familiar smile. His breathing became uneven. I've seen her before. The chief bodyguard looked surprised. You remember her? I think. He closed his eyes. I think she once worked for my family. The room fell silent. If that memory was true, then Chloe's grandmother had been connected to his family decades before either he or Chloe understood. But one question refused to leave his mind. If Lillian had once worked for his family, why had she disappeared without a trace? And why had nobody ever spoken her name again? He looked out into the dark night. Somewhere in the city, Chloe was closing her little bakery, unaware that the answer to those questions could change both of their lives forever. The rain continued through the night. Chloe barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the Korean man's face. She remembered the tears that rolled down his cheeks after tasting her cake. She remembered the strange kindness in his voice. Most of all, she remembered his final offer. I'll help you build the bakery you've always dreamed about. She turned over in bed. No, she whispered to herself. Nothing in life comes that easily. Before sunrise, she got out of bed, tied on her apron, and walked downstairs into the bakery. The familiar smell of flour calmed her heart. This, she said quietly, placing both hands on the old wooden table, is where I belong. She began mixing ingredients. Flour, butter, eggs, sugar, vanilla. As she stirred the batter, she smiled. Good morning, Grandma. It was something she said every day, even though her grandmother had been gone for years. I still remember everything you taught me. She could almost hear the gentle reply. Bake with joy, Chloe. People can taste your heart. She laughed softly. I hope you're right. 2 hours later, fresh cakes filled the display case. Something felt different. Instead of 1 or 2 customers, people began arriving one after another. A young mother walked in holding her little daughter's hand. Good morning. Good morning, Chloe answered with surprise. I've heard your cakes are wonderful. I hope you enjoy them. The little girl pointed excitedly. Mommy, I want that one. Chloe carefully wrapped the cake. The little girl looked up and smiled. You made this. I did. It smells amazing. Thank you. The child reached into the bag before her mother could stop her and took one tiny bite. Her eyes became wide. Oh, she turned toward her mother. Mommy, you have to taste it. The mother laughed and took a small bite. She immediately looked back at Chloe. This is incredible. Before leaving, she said something Chloe had almost forgotten people could say. We'll be back. Those 3 simple words filled Chloe with hope. By noon, almost every cake had been sold. She counted the money twice. Then a third time. Tears gathered in her eyes. This has never happened before. She quietly looked toward the ceiling. Thank you, Grandma. She had no idea that photographs of the mysterious convoy outside her bakery had spread across the city overnight. People were curious. Many came only because they wanted to know why such an important man had visited her little shop. But after tasting the cakes, they returned because they truly loved them. Across the street, Victor watched customer after customer enter Chloe's bakery. His own shop remained almost empty. He slammed his hand against the counter. This is ridiculous. His assistant spoke carefully. Maybe we should improve our recipes. Victor glared at him. So now you're saying her cakes are better than mine? I didn't say that. You were thinking it. The young assistant lowered his head. Victor walked toward the window again. No. His voice became cold. I built this business. I won't let one lucky baker destroy it. That afternoon, Victor made a phone call. I need a favor. The person on the other end answered. What kind of favor? Victor smiled. The kind that makes people stop buying from someone. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, the Korean Mafia boss stood in front of an old storage room that had not been opened in years. Dust covered the shelves. Old family photographs filled dozens of boxes. The chief bodyguard looked puzzled. Boss, what are we looking for? My mother's memories. They opened one box after another. Family celebrations. Birthdays. Business dinners. Vacations. Nothing. Hours passed. Finally, the boss reached into a faded leather box tucked behind a cabinet. Inside were several old photographs tied together with a blue ribbon. He carefully untied it. The first few pictures showed his mother smiling in a beautiful kitchen. Then, he stopped breathing. There, standing beside his mother, wearing a white apron and holding a freshly baked cake, was an older black woman. The picture had faded with time, but her warm smile was unmistakable. Lillian, he whispered. His bodyguard stepped closer. It's her. The boss turned the photograph over. On the back, written in neat handwriting, were the words, Lillian's special vanilla caramel cake. The best birthday gift I have ever received. Below it was his mother's signature. The room became completely silent. So I wasn't imagining it, the boss said quietly. My mother knew Chloe's grandmother. The bodyguard nodded. But why did nobody ever mention her again? The boss stared at the photograph. I intend to find out. The next morning, Chloe was arranging fresh bread near the front window when a delivery truck stopped outside. She frowned. I didn't order anything. 2 workers climbed down carrying large wooden crates. Delivery from Miss Chloe Johnson. She looked confused. There must be some mistake. One worker checked his paper. No mistake. It's your name. They carried the crates inside. When they left, Chloe slowly opened the first box. Her mouth fell open. Inside was a brand new professional mixer. The second crate contained shiny baking pans. The third held decorating tools she had only seen in magazines. The fourth contained a brand new commercial oven. She covered her mouth. No. Tucked inside the final box was a simple envelope. Her hand shook as she opened it. Inside was a short handwritten note. These are not payment. They are an investment in talent. No conditions. No contract. Bake freely. There was no signature. There didn't need to be one. She knew exactly who had sent them. Just then, the bakery door opened. Mr. Harris walked in. He stopped in surprise. My goodness. Chloe handed him the note. He read it carefully, then smiled. I believe he's keeping his word. Chloe sat down slowly. I've spent my whole life waiting for someone to believe in me. Mr. Harris pulled up a chair. Then perhaps this is your season. Before Chloe could answer, a loud crash echoed from outside. Both of them hurried to the window. Someone had thrown a large brick through the bakery's front glass. The window shattered. Customers screamed. A second brick landed inside. Then a third. People ran into the street. Chloe stood frozen. What is happening? Across the road, A man wearing a hood jumped onto a motorcycle and disappeared before anyone could stop him. Within minutes, the bakery was in ruins. Broken glass covered the floor. Several fresh cakes had been destroyed. The new equipment had narrowly escaped being damaged. Chloe slowly dropped to her knees. She picked up a ruined cake with trembling hands. Tears rolled down her face. "I just wanted to bake." Mr. Harris gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't deserve this." She could not answer. She simply cried. Less than 20 minutes later, 5 black SUVs stopped outside. The Korean Mafia boss stepped out. His eyes moved across the broken windows, the destroyed cakes, the frightened customers. Finally, they rested on Chloe. She looked up at him through tears. "I don't understand. I never hurt anyone." He slowly walked inside. His polished shoes crunched across the broken glass. He looked around without saying a word. Then he turned toward his chief bodyguard. His voice became calm. Too calm. "Find out who did this." The bodyguard nodded immediately. "Yes, boss." The boss looked back at Chloe. "I gave you my word." She wiped her tears. "What word?" "That I would help you build your dream." He glanced around the damaged bakery. "And I do not break my promises." Chloe wanted to believe him. But somewhere else in the city, Victor received a phone call. "The job is done." Victor smiled. "Good." He looked out through the window toward Chloe's damaged bakery. He believed he had won. He had no idea. He had just declared war against the one woman the Korean Mafia boss had sworn to protect. The sound of breaking glass still echoed inside Chloe's mind long after the crowd had disappeared. She stood in the middle of her damaged bakery, holding the edge of the counter to keep herself from falling. Tiny pieces of glass covered the floor like scattered ice. Several cakes she had spent hours preparing lay crushed beneath broken window frames. Mr. Harris quietly picked up a broom. "Don't touch anything yet," he said gently. "You'll cut your hands." Chloe looked around with tears in her eyes. "I don't even know where to begin." "You begin by breathing." She wiped her cheeks. "I worked so hard. I know. I never wished anyone harm. I know. Then why would someone do this to me?" Mr. Harris sighed. "Sometimes people become angry when another person begins to shine." Before Chloe could answer, the Korean Mafia boss slowly walked toward the broken display case. He looked at every damaged cake, every broken tray, every shattered window. His expression never changed, but the men standing behind him knew exactly what that silence meant. He turned to his chief bodyguard. "Call the police." The bodyguard looked surprised. "The police, boss?" "Yes." "What if they refuse to investigate?" "They won't. And if they do?" He paused. "Then we will investigate ourselves." The bodyguard nodded. "Understood." Chloe looked at him. "You don't have to do this." He faced her calmly. "I know. Then why are you helping me?" "Because wrong should never be ignored." She lowered her eyes. "I don't want people getting hurt because of me. No innocent person will." His answer came without hesitation. Then he surprised her. He bent down, picked up a broom lying against the wall, and began sweeping broken glass into a small pile. Every person in the bakery froze. One of the guards whispered to another. "I've never seen him do anything like this." Neither had the elderly housekeeper, who had quietly arrived with cleaning supplies. Chloe rushed forward. "No, please, you don't need to do that." He continued sweeping. "I've made bigger messes in my life." She gave a weak laugh despite herself. "I don't think that's something to be proud of." A faint smile appeared on his face. "No, it isn't." For the next 30 minutes, everyone worked together. The guards carried away broken wood. The housekeeper cleaned the shelves. Mr. Harris carefully rescued the cakes that had not been damaged. Chloe simply watched. No one had ever stood beside her like this before. Not when business was failing. Not when bills piled up. Not when people laughed at her. She felt something unfamiliar. She didn't feel alone. When the bakery was finally clean enough to close, she turned toward the Korean man. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already have." "I haven't done anything." "You reminded me that kindness still exists." She smiled softly. "And you reminded me that powerful people don't always have hard hearts." For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. Then the chief bodyguard's phone rang. He stepped outside. A few minutes later, he returned. "Boss, what is it?" "We found the motorcycle." Chloe's heart skipped. "And it was stolen 3 days ago. No fingerprints. No useful security camera. Whoever planned this knew what they were doing." The boss nodded once. Keep looking. Yes, boss. He turned back to Chloe. I'll leave you to rest. As he reached the door, Chloe called after him. Wait. He stopped. She hesitated before speaking. He waited patiently. Thank you. He gave a respectful nod. You're welcome, Chloe. For some reason, hearing her name in his calm voice made her heart beat just a little faster. The following morning, the bakery remained closed while workers replaced the broken window. Chloe sat outside with a notebook, trying to calculate her losses. She crossed out one number after another. Every calculation ended the same way. She didn't have enough money. She whispered quietly, "If business stays like this, I'll lose the bakery." Mr. Harris walked over carrying 2 cups of coffee. "I thought you could use this." She smiled. "You always seem to know." He handed her a cup. "What do the numbers say?" She sighed. "They're not kind." He looked at the notebook. "You've been paying too much for ingredients." "I'll buy the best I can." "I know, but you're buying as if you're already a large bakery." She nodded slowly. "I've never been very good with money." "You've been surviving. There's a difference." She laughed softly. "You sound like my grandmother." "I'll take that as a compliment." As they talked, several people approached the bakery. One woman asked, "Are you open today?" "Not yet," Chloe answered. "We're fixing the window." The woman looked disappointed. "My husband sent me for your caramel cake." Another customer joined them. "I came for 2 chocolate loaves." Then another. "And I wanted your lemon pound cake." Within 15 minutes, more than a dozen people had stopped by asking when the bakery would reopen. Chloe looked at Mr. Harris in disbelief. They came back. He smiled. "I told you, they tasted your cake. They're no longer judging your appearance. They're judging your baking." For the first time in years, hope felt stronger than fear. Across the street, Victor watched the growing crowd with clenched fists. His assistant spoke carefully. "They're asking when she'll reopen." Victor slammed a tray onto the counter. "This neighborhood has forgotten who built the first bakery here." His assistant hesitated. "People like her cakes." Victor turned sharply. "Then maybe they need a reason not to." The assistant's face tightened. "What are you planning?" Victor smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm not planning anything. I'm simply going to remind everyone who she really is." He picked up his phone and opened a local community social media page. Then he began typing. "Would you trust food prepared in an unsanitary kitchen? Some people care more about attention than cleanliness. Be careful where you buy your cakes." He didn't mention Chloe by name. He didn't have to. Everyone in the neighborhood would know exactly who he meant. Within an hour, the rumor began spreading. Some people ignored it. Others believed it immediately. And Chloe had no idea another attack had already begun. The afternoon sun slipped behind thick gray clouds as Chloe finished helping the repair workers install the new front window. She stepped back and smiled weakly. "It isn't perfect." Mr. Harris stood beside her. "It doesn't have to be perfect. It only has to open again." She nodded. "I've missed hearing the little bell above the door." He chuckled. "I think your customers have missed it too." Just then, Chloe noticed 2 women standing across the street. They were looking toward the bakery. One of them pulled out her phone. The other whispered something before both of them walked away without coming inside. Chloe frowned. "That's strange." "What is?" "They looked like they wanted to buy something." Mr. Harris looked thoughtful. "Maybe they'll come back." "I hope so." She unlocked the front door. The little bell rang. For the first time since the attack, Chloe welcomed customers back inside. An elderly couple entered first. "We're so glad you're open again." "So am I," Chloe replied with a warm smile. "What can I get for you today?" "The vanilla caramel cake." She carefully boxed 2 slices. The husband took one bite before they even reached the door. His face lit up. "I told you." His wife laughed. "You were right. This is worth coming back for." Their words warmed Chloe's heart. 1 customer became 3. 3 became 6. By late afternoon, nearly half the cakes were gone. Business was better than she expected. She quietly thanked God under her breath. Then everything changed. A young woman rushed into the bakery, holding her phone. "Miss Chloe." "Yes." "I need to ask you something." "Of course." The woman looked uncomfortable. "Is it true your kitchen failed a health inspection?" Chloe blinked. "What?" "I saw people talking about it online." Another customer spoke up. "I saw that too. They said your kitchen isn't clean." Someone else added, "They said insects were found here." The room suddenly became silent. Chloe felt her stomach tighten. "No." Her voice trembled. None of that is true. I've never failed any inspection. I've never even received a warning. The young woman looked relieved. So it's a lie? Yes. I don't know who started it. Mr. Harris stepped forward. I've been coming here for years. I've seen this kitchen. It's cleaner than many restaurants. Several customers nodded. One man smiled. The cake speaks for itself. Another customer laughed. If the kitchen wasn't clean, this place wouldn't smell this good. The tension slowly faded. But Chloe couldn't stop thinking about the rumor. Someone wanted people to fear her bakery. Someone wanted her business to fail. That evening, after closing, she sat alone behind the counter. The bakery felt unusually quiet. She opened her grandmother's old recipe book. The worn pages carried tiny stains from years of baking. A folded piece of paper slipped onto the floor. She picked it up. It was an old letter written in her grandmother's handwriting. Dear Chloe, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer beside you. Tears gathered in Chloe's eyes. Never let cruel people decide your worth. Many people will judge your body before they discover your heart. Do not become bitter. Keep baking. One day, the right person will taste your cakes and open a door no human being can close. Chloe gently pressed the letter against her chest. I miss you so much, Grandma. A tear rolled down her cheek. You always believed in me. Outside, a black SUV quietly stopped across the street. Inside, the Korean Mafia boss looked through the bakery window. He saw Chloe wiping away tears. He saw the old recipe book. He saw her smiling through the pain. The chief bodyguard looked at him. Boss, I asked you to investigate the rumors. Yes, we found where they started. The boss remained silent. The bodyguard continued. A fake account posted the first message. Can you trace it? We're close. Keep going. There is something else. What? We also spoke with several shop owners. And they all said the same thing. What did they say? Before the rumors appeared, Victor visited almost every business on this street. The boss slowly looked toward the bakery again. So he felt threatened. It appears that way. The bodyguard hesitated. Would you like us to deal with him? The boss answered immediately. No. The guard looked surprised. No. I want proof. What if he attacks Chloe again? The boss's eyes became firm. Then he will answer for it. Across the street, Victor stood in the shadows watching the SUV. His face tightened. So, they're still protecting her. His assistant nervously walked over. The rumors didn't work. Victor clenched his fists. Then we'll make people believe them. What do you mean? Victor smiled coldly. If people won't believe words, they'll believe what they see. The assistant suddenly looked worried. Victor, don't do anything foolish. Victor ignored him. Instead, he picked up his phone and called the same unknown man who had helped him before. I have another job. The voice answered. What this time? Victor looked toward Chloe's bakery. I don't want broken windows. I want something much worse. The next morning, Chloe unlocked the bakery with a lighter heart. She had decided she would not let fear steal her dream. As she placed fresh cakes into the display case, the little bell rang. She smiled without looking up. Good morning. No one answered. She turned around. The Korean Mafia boss stood quietly inside the doorway. He was alone. No bodyguards. No convoy. Just him. She looked surprised. You came by yourself. I did. Aren't you worried? He smiled faintly. About what? She laughed. I thought important people never went anywhere alone. I wanted to buy cake. You could have sent someone. I preferred to come myself. She handed him a warm slice of vanilla caramel cake. This one's fresh from the oven. He accepted it. I also came to tell you something. Her smile slowly faded. What is it? I believe someone is trying to destroy your business. Chloe looked down. I've started believing that too. He stepped a little closer. Please be careful. She nodded. I will. Neither of them noticed the man standing outside across the street. Hidden behind a parked delivery truck, he quietly lifted his phone and took several photographs of Chloe and the Korean Mafia boss standing together inside the bakery. A slow smile spread across his face. This, he whispered, is exactly what Victor wanted. He slipped away before either of them saw him. Neither Chloe nor the Mafia boss realized that by morning, those photographs would spread across the city. And once they did, Chloe's quiet life would never be the same again. The Korean Mafia boss remained by the display case, holding the warm slice of cake without taking another bite. Chloe noticed he was unusually quiet. You look like something is bothering you. He looked at her for a moment before answering. It is. Can you tell me? I don't like making promises I cannot keep. She looked confused. You promised to help me. I did. And now you think you can't? He slowly shook his head. No. I think someone is trying to force my hand. Chloe folded her arms. I don't understand. He placed the plate gently on the counter. Yesterday, your bakery was attacked. Today, false stories are spreading. That isn't a coincidence. Her smile faded. You really believe someone is doing this on purpose? I do, and I believe they're only getting started. Chloe looked toward the front window. People were walking past as though nothing had happened. Some smiled and waved. Others stopped to look at the cakes. Everything appeared normal. Yet she suddenly felt uneasy. She lowered her voice. What should I do? Keep baking. She blinked. That's all. For now. You don't want me to close the shop? No. You don't want me to leave town? No. You don't want me to hide? He looked directly into her eyes. No. You have spent too many years hiding because of other people's opinions. I won't ask you to hide now. His words settled deep inside her heart. For years, she had allowed shame to control her life. Every cruel laugh, every insult, every rejection, she had accepted them as if they were the truth. Now, this stranger was asking her to stand where everyone could see her. It frightened her, but also gave her courage. Before she could answer, the little bell above the door rang again. 3 women entered together. One of them looked at the Mafia boss. Her eyes widened. She whispered to her friends, Isn't that the man everyone has been talking about? The second woman nodded. I think so. The third smiled at Chloe. We came because my sister brought one of your cakes home yesterday. She wouldn't stop talking about it. Chloe smiled warmly. I'm happy she enjoyed it. We'd like 3 whole cakes. Chloe almost thought she had heard wrong. 3. Yes. We're celebrating our mother's birthday. As Chloe boxed the cakes, the women continued talking. My sister said your caramel cake is the best she's ever tasted. Another woman laughed. She wasn't lying. When the women left, they thanked Chloe warmly. Not one of them laughed at her. Not one of them looked at her with pity. The Mafia boss quietly watched everything. You see? What? They're coming back because of your gift. Chloe smiled. I waited a long time for this. I know. She looked at him. Ow. He answered honestly. I've read your file. She laughed softly. So, you know all my embarrassing moments. I know your difficult ones. He paused. But I also know you never stopped trying. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them no longer felt uncomfortable. It felt peaceful. Just then, the chief bodyguard hurried into the bakery. He looked serious. Boss. The Mafia boss immediately recognized the expression on his face. What happened? We need a word. The boss glanced at Chloe. I'll be back. He stepped outside with the bodyguard. They walked a short distance away. What is it? The bodyguard handed him a tablet. These were uploaded less than 10 minutes ago. The boss looked at the screen. His face became still. Several photographs showed him standing inside Chloe's bakery. Others showed Chloe smiling while handing him cake. One headline read, Mystery Woman Captures Heart of Powerful Korean Billionaire. Another headline claimed, Secret Romance Begins Inside Small Bakery. The chief bodyguard spoke quietly. The story is spreading fast. The boss kept reading. Some comments congratulated Chloe. Others insulted her. One cruel message read, He must be playing a joke. A man like him would never choose a woman like that. Another said, She's probably after his money. His jaw tightened. What else? The bodyguard scrolled farther. Someone also posted the false health rumors again, and they're connecting them to these photographs. The boss looked back through the bakery window. Chloe was happily arranging fresh bread, completely unaware of what people were saying about her online. He handed the tablet back. Don't tell her. The bodyguard looked surprised. For now. For now. I don't want a day's happiness stolen from her. The bodyguard nodded. Understood. Across the street, Victor stood behind the curtain of his bakery. A slow smile crossed his face as he watched the boss leave. His assistant walked over. The pictures are everywhere. Victor nodded. Good. But some people are defending Chloe. They won't for long. What are you planning now? Victor leaned closer. People don't destroy a reputation in one day. You do it one piece at a time. His assistant looked increasingly uncomfortable. This is getting out of hand. Victor's smile disappeared. No, it's just getting started. He reached beneath the counter and pulled out an old newspaper. The front page showed a younger Chloe standing outside a baking competition years earlier. The headline read, "Local woman eliminated in first round." Victor tapped the picture. Everyone loves success, but they never forget failure. He folded the newspaper carefully. Let's remind them. Meanwhile, Chloe finished serving the last customer before lunch. She looked around the nearly empty display case and laughed in disbelief. I've almost sold out. Mr. Harris clapped his hands together. I haven't seen your shelves this empty in years. She looked at him with shining eyes. I used to pray for days like this. And now, I'm praying they'll continue. She suddenly remembered something. Oh, she hurried into the back room and returned carrying a small paper bag. Mr. Harris smiled. What's this? For you. You don't have to. I know. She placed it into his hands. You were buying my cakes when nobody else believed in me. I'll never forget that. The old man's eyes became wet. I didn't do much. You did enough. He smiled. Your grandmother would be proud. Those words touched Chloe more deeply than he realized. She quietly whispered, I hope so. Outside, the Korean Mafia boss sat inside his SUV without telling the driver to move. His eyes remained fixed on the bakery. The chief bodyguard finally asked, Boss, may I ask you something? Go ahead. When did this become personal? The boss remained silent for several seconds. Finally, he answered, The moment I realized she had spent her whole life fighting battles she never deserved. The bodyguard nodded slowly. And now? The boss looked toward the bakery one more time. Now I intend to make sure she wins. Neither man noticed the black sedan parked farther down the street. Inside sat the unknown man Victor had hired. He lowered a pair of binoculars. Then he spoke quietly into his phone. I've confirmed it. Victor answered immediately. Confirmed what? The Korean is watching her personally. Victor smiled. Perfect. The man hesitated. What do you want me to do next? Victor looked out through his bakery window, his expression colder than ever. I don't want you to touch the Korean. I want you to make Chloe believe she's the reason innocent people are getting hurt. The man was silent for a moment. That will break her. Victor answered in a calm voice. Exactly. And with those words, a far more dangerous plan quietly began to unfold. The next morning, Chloe arrived at the bakery before the sun had fully risen. The neighborhood was still quiet. She unlocked the front door, stepped inside, and took a deep breath. This place still feels like home, she whispered. She switched on the lights, tied her apron, and began preparing the day's batter. As she measured the flour, she smiled to herself. Grandma, today is going to be a good day. She almost believed it. Almost. A gentle knock came at the back door. She frowned. Who could that be this early? She opened the door and found the elderly housekeeper from the Korean Mafia boss's estate. The woman held a woven basket covered with a clean white cloth. Good morning, Miss Chloe. Chloe smiled. Good morning. Please come in. The housekeeper stepped inside and placed the basket on the counter. I brought breakfast. You didn't have to do that. I know. She smiled warmly. But I wanted to. Chloe lifted the cloth. Fresh fruit. Warm bread. Homemade soup. She looked touched. This is so kind. The older woman took Chloe's hands. I came for another reason too. What is it? Our boss has not stopped talking about your cakes. Chloe laughed softly. I still can't believe that. He has also started eating breakfast again. Her smile faded into surprise. What do you mean? There were days when he skipped meals. He worked from morning until night. Sometimes he only drank coffee. But since meeting you, the housekeeper's eyes became moist. He sits down and eats. Chloe looked away. I'm happy to hear that. You've brought peace into a heart that has carried too much pain. Before Chloe could respond, the little bell above the front door rang. A delivery driver entered carrying a large envelope. Package for Miss Chloe Johnson. She signed for it. After the driver left, she opened the envelope. Inside was an invitation printed on thick cream-colored paper. She read it aloud. The National Artisan Baking Showcase invites Chloe Johnson to compete as a featured baker. Her hands began to shake. I've never received an invitation. The housekeeper smiled. Perhaps people are finally seeing what was always there. Tears filled Chloe's eyes. I've applied to this competition 3 times. They rejected me every time. She carefully read the invitation again. They're inviting me instead of making me apply. She covered her mouth. I wish Grandma could see this. The housekeeper hugged her gently. I believe she can. Across town, Victor sat in his office, staring at the same announcement on his computer. His face darkened. They invited her. His assistant nodded. Word about her cakes has spread quickly. Victor crumpled a piece of paper in his hand. I've competed in that showcase for years. They've never treated me like this. His assistant spoke carefully. Maybe this is an opportunity. Victor looked up sharply. For what? You could congratulate her. Victor laughed without humor. You still don't understand. If Chloe wins, my bakery becomes yesterday's news. His phone buzzed. It was the unknown man. I've been watching. Victor answered quietly. Tell me. The Korean visited her again. Victor's expression hardened. They're becoming close. What do you want me to do? Victor looked out his office window. Nothing yet. I want her worried. I don't want her broken. Not until the competition. That afternoon, the bakery filled with customers. A little boy stood on his toes to see over the counter. Miss Chloe. She smiled. Yes. My grandma says your chocolate cake makes people smile. Does she? He nodded eagerly. I had a bad day at school. She leaned forward. I'm sorry. My classmates laughed because I read slowly. Chloe's heart tightened. She carefully placed an extra cookie into his bag. This one's on me. His eyes grew wide. Really? Really? He smiled for the first time. Thank you. As he walked away, Mr. Harris quietly said, You saw yourself in him. Chloe nodded. I know what it's like when people laugh before they know you. Mr. Harris smiled. That's why people keep coming back. For the cake. He shook his head. No. For you. Those words stayed with Chloe long after he left. Late that evening, the Korean Mafia boss sat alone in his study. The old photograph of his mother and Lillian rested on his desk. He studied it again. There was something he had missed. He picked up a magnifying glass. Near the bottom corner of the picture, almost hidden by age, he noticed a handwritten note. It wasn't his mother's writing. It belonged to Lillian. The note read, One day, if our families are separated, the recipe will help you remember love. He slowly lowered the photograph. Our families. He whispered. What happened between them? Just then, his chief bodyguard entered. Boss, what did you find? We spoke with one of your late mother's oldest friends. And she remembered Lillian. The boss stood immediately. What did she say? The bodyguard opened a notebook. She said Lillian didn't leave willingly. The room became still. What do you mean? According to her, someone forced Lillian to disappear. The boss's eyes narrowed. Who? The bodyguard slowly shook his head. She doesn't know. But she believes your mother cried for weeks after Lillian vanished. The boss looked back at the photograph. If that was true, then Chloe's grandmother had not abandoned his family. She had been driven away. But by whom? And why? The next morning, Chloe arrived at the bakery to find a small crowd gathered outside. Her heart skipped. Oh no. She hurried forward. What happened? One woman smiled. We've been waiting for you to open. Another customer laughed. You sell out too early. An older gentleman added. You need a bigger bakery. Chloe laughed through happy tears. One day, as she unlocked the door, she noticed a folded piece of paper lying just inside the entrance. She picked it up. There was no name. Only one sentence written in bold black letters. Stay away from the Korean man if you want everyone around you to stay safe. The color drained from Chloe's face. Her hands began to tremble. She quickly folded the note before the waiting customers could read it. Miss Chloe, one woman asked, Are you all right? Chloe forced a smile. Yes, I'm fine. But she wasn't. For the rest of the day, she could barely concentrate. Every time the bell above the door rang, she looked up nervously. Every unfamiliar face made her uneasy. That evening, after closing, she sat alone in the dark bakery, holding the threatening note. She whispered to herself, Is this because of me? Or because of him? She knew only one thing. If someone was willing to threaten her without showing their face, the danger was no longer just about cakes. And somewhere across the city, hidden inside a parked car, the unknown man watched the bakery lights go out. He smiled to himself. The fear has begun. He reached for his phone. Victor answered on the first ring. Well, the man looked toward the darkened bakery. She found the note. Victor closed his eyes with satisfaction. Good. What next? Victor's voice turned cold. Now we wait. The frightened make mistakes. Neither of them realized that another pair of eyes had been watching from the rooftop across the street. One of the Korean Mafia boss's trusted security men lowered his camera after photographing the exchange. He quietly spoke into his radio. I found a man delivering the threats. There was a brief pause. Then the boss's calm voice came through the speaker. Do not arrest him. Follow him. I want the person giving the orders. The guard smiled. Yes, boss. For the first time since the attacks began, the hunter had become the hunted. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. More emotional stories like this are on the way, and your support helps the channel grow. The following morning, Chloe stood in front of the bakery mirror before opening the shop. She looked at the threatening note one more time. Stay away from the Korean man if you want everyone around you to stay safe. She folded it carefully and slipped it into her apron pocket. I won't let fear control me, she whispered. Even as she spoke those words, her hands trembled. She unlocked the front door. The familiar bell rang. Within minutes, customers began arriving. Some came for birthday cakes. Others came for fresh bread. Several simply wanted to encourage her after hearing about the broken window a few days earlier. An elderly woman reached across the counter and squeezed Chloe's hand. Keep going, sweetheart. We're all proud of you. Chloe smiled. Thank you. You've been very kind to me. The woman laughed. No, you've been kind to this whole neighborhood. Those simple words stayed with Chloe long after the customer left. For years, she believed people only noticed her weight. Now, they were noticing her heart. Yet the threatening note remained heavy in her pocket. Every time she touched it, her smile faded. Across the city, the Korean Mafia boss sat in his office while his chief bodyguard spread several photographs across a large table. One showed the unknown man slipping the threatening note beneath Chloe's bakery door. Another showed the same man entering an abandoned warehouse. A third showed Victor meeting him later that evening. The bodyguard pointed toward the photographs. We followed him for 2 days. The boss remained silent. There is no longer any doubt. He looked at Victor's photograph. So it is him. Yes. And the rumors online? Our investigators traced several fake accounts. They all lead back to computers inside Victor's bakery. The room became quiet. One younger guard stepped forward. Boss. Yes. Give the order. The boss looked at him. What order? We can end this today. The boss slowly shook his head. No. The guard looked confused. He attacked Chloe. He spread lies. He hired someone to threaten her. Why wait? The boss answered calmly. Because Chloe has fought her whole life to earn respect honestly. If I destroy Victor with fear, people will say her success came from me. He stood and walked toward the window. I want the truth to defeat him. The chief bodyguard smiled slightly. You've changed. The boss looked outside. Perhaps. Meanwhile, Victor welcomed reporters into his bakery. He wore a bright smile. His display shelves were filled with colorful cakes. He laughed loudly as cameras flashed. One reporter asked, Business has been difficult lately. How are you responding to the competition from the bakery across the street? Victor smiled politely. I don't believe in attacking competitors. I simply focus on quality. Another reporter asked, What do you think about Chloe's invitation to the National Artisan Baking Showcase? He pretended to be surprised. I think it's wonderful. I wish her nothing but success. His assistant stood nearby, listening in disbelief. The moment the reporters left, Victor's smile disappeared. Call him. The assistant hesitated. Again. Now. The unknown man answered after 2 rings. Victor lowered his voice. She's still planning to compete. What do you want? Victor looked toward Chloe's bakery through the front window. I want her to withdraw on her own. Late that afternoon, Chloe closed the bakery early. She placed the handwritten note inside her purse and walked toward the police station. Mr. Harris noticed. Where are you going? I need advice. I'm coming with you. You don't have to. I know, but you're not walking in there alone. 30 minutes later, they sat across from a police inspector. He carefully read the threatening note. Then he sighed. I'm sorry. Chloe looked worried. Can you help me? We'll file a report. But without fingerprints, witnesses, or security footage. He spread his hands. There isn't much we can do. She lowered her eyes. So I'll just wait. We'll increase patrols. but I suggest being careful. Outside the station, Chloe looked exhausted. Mr. Harris gently spoke. What are you thinking? She answered honestly. I'm thinking everyone was safer before I met him. He stopped walking. No, they weren't. She looked confused. What do you mean? The people attacking you didn't create your fear. They only exposed it. She looked away. I don't want anyone getting hurt because of me. Mr. Harris smiled sadly. You remind me of your grandmother. She carried everyone's pain. You don't have to carry this alone. That evening, the Korean Mafia boss unexpectedly arrived at the bakery just before closing. He noticed immediately that Chloe's smile was missing. You've had a difficult day. She nodded. Yes. He remained quiet, giving her time to speak. Finally, she reached into her purse and handed him the threatening note. I didn't want you to see this. He unfolded it slowly. His face remained calm. When did this arrive? Yesterday morning. And you didn't tell me. I didn't want more trouble. He looked directly at her. Chloe. She met his eyes. You are not trouble. His voice was gentle. The people doing this are responsible. Not you. She struggled to hold back tears. I keep asking myself one question. What question? If I had never met you, would my life still be peaceful? The words struck him harder than she realized. He answered after a long silence. I've asked myself something similar. She looked surprised. What? If I had walked past your bakery that day, would you still be smiling today? Neither of them had an answer. The silence between them became heavy. Finally, Chloe spoke. I think. She swallowed. We shouldn't see each other for a while. His expression changed for the first time. You believe that will keep you safe? I don't know, but I have to try. He looked at the floor before answering. If that's what you truly want, I'll respect your decision. He turned toward the door. Just before leaving, he stopped. Without looking back, he said quietly, I made you one promise. You remember? She nodded. Yes. I haven't forgotten. Neither have I. Then he walked away. From a second-floor window of Victor's bakery, binoculars followed every moment of the conversation. Victor slowly lowered them. A satisfied smile spread across his face. They're pulling apart. His assistant didn't smile. This has gone too far. Victor ignored him. No, this is exactly where I wanted them. He picked up his phone and called the unknown man one more time. The first part worked. What now? The man asked. Victor's smile became colder. Now we make sure Chloe never walks into that baking competition. The man paused. What are you planning? Victor answered in a calm voice that sent a chill through the room. By the end of this week, she won't believe she deserved to stand in front of those judges. The morning after Chloe asked the Korean Mafia boss to stay away, the bakery felt strangely quiet. Nothing had changed. The old oven still hummed. The smell of fresh bread still filled the room. The little bell above the door still rang whenever customers entered. Yet everything felt different. Chloe found herself looking toward the front window every few minutes. She caught herself expecting to see a black SUV parked outside. Each time she realized it wasn't there, she quickly looked away. Mr. Harris noticed. You keep looking at the road. I do. You've looked outside at least 10 times. She gave a small laugh. I guess old habits are hard to break. He smiled kindly. Do you miss him already? Chloe stopped arranging the cakes. I barely know him. That wasn't my question. She remained silent. After several seconds, she answered honestly. I miss how safe I felt when he was here. Mr. Harris nodded. That makes more sense. He listened. He believed me. He never laughed at me. Her voice became softer. I've never had that before. Mr. Harris rested one hand on the counter. Sometimes life introduces people for a reason. I'm just afraid that reason will cost someone their life. Across the city, the Korean Mafia boss stood inside a private training room. He wasn't exercising. He was looking at the old photograph of his mother and Lillian once again. His chief bodyguard entered carrying another file. Boss, you found something? Yes. We finally located a retired driver who worked for your family 30 years ago. What did he say? He remembered Lillian. The boss immediately looked up, and he remembered the day she disappeared. The room became silent. The bodyguard continued. He said Lillian didn't steal anything. He said she wasn't dismissed. What happened? The bodyguard slowly opened the file. He remembers hearing an argument. Between who? Your grandfather and another member of the family. The boss frowned. My grandfather? Yes. The driver said your mother begged your grandfather not to send Lillian away. The boss's breathing became slow. Did he say why? He only remembered one sentence. What was it? The bodyguard looked down at his notes. He heard your grandfather say, "If she stays here, everyone we love will be in danger." The boss became completely still. The same words echoed in his mind. Everyone we love will be in danger. They sounded frighteningly similar to the threat Chloe had received. He slowly looked toward the window. This isn't just about jealousy anymore. The bodyguard nodded. I was thinking the same thing. Meanwhile, Victor stood inside his bakery watching customers cross the street toward Chloe's shop. His assistant walked over carrying the morning sales report. We're down again. Victor barely looked at it. I expected that. What if this doesn't work? Victor smiled. It will. His assistant lowered his voice. I've worked with you for 12 years. I've never seen you hate someone like this. Victor looked across the street. I don't hate Chloe. Then why are you doing this? Victor answered quietly. Because nobody noticed me until she arrived. I spent years building this bakery. I won competitions. I trained apprentices. And in 1 month, everyone forgot my name. His assistant sighed. They didn't forget you. They discovered someone else. Victor shook his head. You don't understand. If she wins the National Artisan Baking Showcase, my career is finished. He looked toward the office door. Bring me the sample. The assistant hesitated. You still want to do that? Yes. The assistant reluctantly placed a small box on the table. Inside was a cake decorated almost exactly like Chloe's famous vanilla caramel cake. Victor smiled. People love originals. He looked at the cake. But they can't always tell the difference from a copy. That afternoon, Chloe received another visitor. This time, it was a young woman wearing a badge from the National Artisan Baking Showcase. Miss Chloe? Yes. My name is Denise. I help organize the competition. Chloe smiled warmly. It's nice to meet you. I only stopped by to confirm that you're still planning to compete. Chloe hesitated. The threatening note flashed through her mind. She looked toward the empty corner where the Korean Mafia boss usually stood whenever he visited. He wasn't there. She slowly looked back at Denise. Before she could answer, Mr. Harris quietly cleared his throat. Denise smiled politely. We need your answer today. Chloe's hands tightened around her apron. For several long seconds, she couldn't speak. Then she remembered her grandmother's letter. Never let cruel people decide your worth. She took a slow breath. Yes. Denise smiled. So you'll be there? Yes. I'll compete. The organizer extended her hand. We're honored to have you. After Denise left, Chloe sat down heavily. Mr. Harris smiled. You made the right choice. I hope so. You didn't sound very confident. I'm not. She looked at the invitation again. I'm terrified. He laughed gently. Being brave doesn't mean you're never afraid. It means you keep walking anyway. That evening, the Korean Mafia boss received unexpected news. One of his security men entered quickly. Boss, what happened? We followed Victor's messenger. And he didn't go back to Victor. Where did he go? The guard handed over several photographs. He met with someone else. The boss studied the pictures carefully. An older man wearing an expensive suit stepped out of a black sedan. His face looked familiar. Very familiar. The boss's expression changed. I know this man. The chief bodyguard looked closely. You do? He worked for my grandfather. The room fell silent. He disappeared years ago. The boss looked at the photograph again. So this isn't only Victor. No, someone else is moving the pieces. And Victor may not even realize he's being used. The chief bodyguard folded his arms. What are your orders? The boss answered without hesitation. Bring me everything. I want every business record, every phone call, every financial transfer. I don't care how small. I want the truth. The next morning, Chloe opened the bakery to another busy crowd. She smiled as children pointed excitedly at the cakes. Older couples chatted while enjoying coffee. For a little while, life felt normal again. Then the bell above the door rang. Everyone turned. Victor stood in the entrance holding a neatly wrapped cake. The room became silent. Chloe looked stunned. Victor, he smiled politely. I came to congratulate you. She didn't know what to say. I heard you're competing. Thank you. He placed the cake on the counter. A gift. You didn't have to. I know. I wanted to. Several customers smiled, believing the rivalry had ended. Victor looked around the bakery. You've done well. I've worked hard. I'm sure you have. He leaned closer. I hope nothing unfortunate happens before the competition. His smile never faded, but Chloe felt a chill run through her body. What do you mean? Victor stepped back. Oh, nothing. I'm simply wishing you good luck. He turned and walked toward the door. Just before leaving, he looked back. I'll see you at the showcase. The bell rang as he disappeared outside. Mr. Harris walked over immediately. What did you hear in his voice? Chloe stared at the unopened cake. A warning. Across the street, Victor climbed into his car. His phone rang. The unknown older man spoke first. Is she frightened? Victor smiled. Not enough. She will be. The older man answered calmly. Everything is ready. The competition is exactly where we want her. Victor ended the call and looked toward Chloe's bakery one last time. He believed victory was finally within reach. He had no idea that, at that very moment, the Korean Mafia boss was reading a decades-old document that connected the older man on the phone to Lillian's disappearance. The boss slowly closed the file. His eyes hardened. So that's who betrayed my mother. He stood. For 30 years, the truth has been buried. He looked toward the city where Chloe's bakery stood. And before this week is over, everyone will know it. If you've enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who loves emotional stories. Your support helps this channel continue bringing you stories like this. The National Artisan Baking Showcase arrived with more excitement than anyone could remember. Long before sunrise, television vans lined the entrance to the convention center. Bakers from across the country rolled in carts filled with carefully prepared ingredients. Judges, reporters, and food critics gathered near the front doors, eager to discover the nation's next great baker. Inside her tiny bakery, Chloe stood quietly before her grandmother's recipe book. She rested both hands on its worn cover. "Grandma," she whispered, "today is the biggest day of my life." She closed her eyes. "I'm scared." The words hung in the silence. "I'm afraid I'll disappoint everyone." She slowly opened the recipe book. Between the first 2 pages rested the old letter her grandmother had written years before. She read one sentence again. "Never let cruel people decide your worth." A gentle smile appeared on her face. "I won't." Mr. Harris knocked softly on the door. "Miss Champion." She laughed. "You've already decided I won?" He smiled. "I decided that the day you refused to quit." She hugged him tightly. "Thank you." He stepped back and looked at her with pride. "No matter what happens today, remember who you are." "I will." Across town, the Korean Mafia boss stood inside his study. The chief bodyguard placed another folder on the desk. "We have everything." The boss looked up. "The proof." "Yes." The bodyguard opened the folder. It wasn't Victor who planned everything. It was the older man, the one who once worked for your grandfather. The boss slowly nodded. "What is his name?" "Kong Min-suk." The bodyguard continued. "He handled financial records for your grandfather. When Lillian disappeared, he arranged the paperwork." The boss's expression darkened. "So he helped cover it up." "Yes." "And Victor?" "Victor borrowed money from him several years ago." The boss looked surprised. "So Victor owes him." "Exactly." Kong used Victor's jealousy. He promised to erase Victor's debt if he destroyed Chloe's reputation. The room became silent. The boss slowly closed the folder. "My grandfather is gone. My mother is gone. Lillian is gone. But one man kept their secret alive for 30 years. The chief bodyguard nodded. "What are your orders?" The boss stood. "Today ends it." The convention center buzzed with excitement. Contestants hurried from station to station, carrying bowls, mixers, and decorating tools. Chloe stopped just inside the entrance. Her eyes widened. "I've never seen anything like this." Hundreds of people filled the enormous hall. Television cameras moved through the crowd. Bright lights hung from the ceiling. A cheerful volunteer approached. "Good morning. You must be Chloe." She nodded nervously. "Yes. We're so happy you're here." The volunteer handed her a badge. "Station number 12. "Thank you." As Chloe walked toward her station, whispers followed her. "That's her. The bakery everyone is talking about. The Korean billionaire's friend." She lowered her head. "I just want people talking about my cakes," she whispered. When she reached Station 12, her smile faded. Someone had already been there. One drawer stood slightly open. A bag of sugar had been torn. Several measuring spoons, lay scattered across the table. She frowned. That's strange. A nearby contestant looked over. Everything all right? I think someone touched my station. The contestant shrugged. People have been walking around all morning. Maybe it was an accident. Chloe nodded, but something didn't feel right. Victor entered the hall a few minutes later. He wore an expensive white chef's coat with gold embroidery. Several reporters hurried toward him. Victor, can we have a quick interview? He smiled confidently. Of course. How does it feel competing again? It's always an honor. What do you think about the newcomer, Chloe Johnson? He laughed politely. I wish every contestant success. I believe talent should always win. Across the room, Chloe heard every word. Mr. Harris leaned close. He sounds different today. Chloe quietly replied. Sometimes the kindest smile hides the darkest heart. The judges soon gathered every contestant. The chief judge smiled warmly. Welcome. We're honored to have each of you here. The competition will have 3 rounds. The first round tests flavor. The second tests creativity. The final round tests composure under pressure. One contestant raised his hand. What do you mean by composure? The judge smiled. Life rarely goes according to plan. We want to see how you respond when something unexpected happens. Those words settled heavily in Chloe's heart. As everyone returned to their stations, the competition officially began. Timer started. Mixers hummed. Butter melted. Chocolate flowed. The hall filled with wonderful smells. Chloe smiled as her hands began moving naturally. Her fear slowly disappeared. She measured each ingredient exactly as her grandmother had taught her. Never rush. Never guess. Respect every ingredient. She could almost hear Lillian's voice beside her. Half an hour passed. Everything was going perfectly. Then, she reached for her bottle of pure vanilla. It was empty. She frowned. That's impossible. She clearly remembered filling it before leaving home. She searched every box. Nothing. Her breathing became faster. Without pure vanilla, her signature cake could never taste the same. She whispered, No. Mr. Harris looked worried. What happened? My vanilla is gone. You packed it. I know. I checked twice. The elderly man looked around carefully. You think someone took it? Before Chloe could answer, she noticed Victor glancing toward her station. For just a moment, he smiled. Not a friendly smile. A satisfied one. Chloe's heart sank. From a private viewing room above the competition floor, the Korean Mafia boss watched everything through the large glass windows. The chief bodyguard entered quickly. Boss, what is it? Our people searched the security cameras, and we found someone entering Chloe's station before the competition. The boss looked up immediately. Who? The bodyguard handed him a tablet. A video played. A competition worker quietly walked to Station 12. He removed something from beneath the table, then disappeared. The boss narrowed his eyes. Follow him. We already did. And he met Kong Min-suk outside. The boss's expression became cold. So it begins. He looked back toward the competition floor, where Chloe desperately searched through her supplies. No more waiting. He turned toward his security team. Bring Kong Min-suk to me. The bodyguards nodded. Yes, boss. As they hurried away, the boss looked at Chloe one last time. She still didn't know that her biggest challenge wasn't the missing vanilla. It was the 30-year-old secret that was about to explode in front of the entire country. The competition hall grew quieter as the judges moved from one station to another. Chloe closed her eyes for a brief moment. Think, she whispered to herself. Don't panic. She remembered something her grandmother had said many years earlier. A great baker never depends on one ingredient. A great baker depends on wisdom. She slowly opened her eyes. I know what to do. Instead of giving up, Chloe reached into a small cloth bag she always carried with her. Inside was a tiny glass jar. Mr. Harris looked surprised. I've never seen that before. She smiled through her worry. My grandmother told me to carry it everywhere. What is it? A homemade vanilla butter extract. I've never had to use it. She held the jar gently. She called it her emergency blessing. Mr. Harris laughed softly. Your grandmother thought of everything. Chloe nodded. She usually did. She poured a small amount into the batter. The sweet aroma filled the air. Several nearby contestants turned their heads. One whispered, Where's that smell coming from? Another smiled. It smells incredible. Across the room, Victor's confident smile slowly disappeared. He looked toward Chloe's station. Impossible, he muttered. I made sure. He stopped speaking. His assistant, standing among the audience, quietly lowered his head. For the first time that day, Victor looked nervous. 1 hour later, the first round ended. Contestants placed their cakes before the judges. The chief judge tasted Victor's cake first. He nodded politely. Very balanced. Another judge added, excellent texture. Victor smiled with confidence. Then the judges reached Chloe's table. The chief judge cut a small slice. He took one bite. His eyes widened. The other judges immediately tasted theirs. For several long seconds, no one spoke. The audience became completely silent. Finally, the oldest judge smiled. I haven't tasted a cake like this in many years. Another judge slowly nodded. It reminds me of something. The chief judge looked at Chloe. Who taught you this recipe? My grandmother. What was her name? Lillian Brooks. The oldest judge suddenly stopped smiling. He looked carefully at Chloe. Lillian Brooks? Yes. He slowly placed his fork on the table. I knew her. The room became silent. Chloe blinked in surprise. You knew my grandmother? I judged a small baking competition nearly 30 years ago. Your grandmother should have one. What happened? The judge looked down sadly. She disappeared before the final round. I never saw her again. Tears filled Chloe's eyes. My grandmother never told me that. The judge smiled gently. She was one of the finest bakers I've ever met. The audience applauded. Chloe covered her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks. For the first time in her life, someone outside her family had publicly honored her grandmother. Meanwhile, inside a private conference room beneath the convention center, Kang Min-suk sat quietly between two security officers. The Korean Mafia boss entered. Kang looked up. So, you finally found me. The boss remained standing. For 30 years. Kang smiled faintly. I wondered when this day would come. The boss placed the old photograph on the table. My mother trusted Lillian. Why was she forced to leave? Kang looked at the photograph for several seconds. Then he sighed. Because your grandfather made a terrible mistake. What mistake? He believed someone wanted to kidnap you. The boss frowned. What does that have to do with Lillian? Nothing. She tried to tell him the information was false. He refused to listen. And then, Kang lowered his eyes. A wealthy business rival offered me money. The room became quiet. I accepted it. You betrayed them. Yes. I convinced your grandfather that Lillian was secretly working with his enemies. The boss clenched his fists. You lied. I did. My mother begged him to believe Lillian. Yes, but I had already planted enough fear. The boss's voice became heavier. So an innocent woman lost everything. Because of your greed, Kang nodded. I've regretted it every day. The boss looked at him steadily. Regret does not erase the truth. No, it doesn't. Just then, the conference room door opened. Police detectives entered. The lead detective spoke clearly. Kang Min-suk, you are under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, evidence tampering, and several other financial crimes connected to this investigation. Kang quietly stood. Before leaving, he looked back at the boss. There is one more thing. What? Lillian never hated your family. She prayed for your mother until the day she died. Those words struck the boss deeply. He closed his eyes for a brief moment. Then Kang was led away. Back inside the competition hall, the final round had begun. Only 3 contestants remained. Victor, Chloe, and a young pastry chef from another city. The final challenge was announced. You have 90 minutes. Create a cake that tells your life story. The contestants immediately began working. Victor built an elaborate cake covered in expensive decorations. The young pastry chef created a modern design filled with colorful sugar art. Chloe stood quietly. She didn't move. Mr. Harris looked concerned. What are you thinking? She smiled. She baked 3 simple layers. 1 represented hardship. 1 represented hope. 1 represented love. She covered the cake with smooth buttercream instead of fancy decorations. At the top, she placed a single small flower made by hand. When the judges reached her table, the chief judge asked, "Tell us about your cake." Chloe smiled. My grandmother taught me that beautiful things don't always need to be complicated. She pointed to the bottom layer. This is my pain, the middle layer. This is the kindness of people who refuse to give up on me. Finally, she touched the flower. This is hope. It only takes one flower to remind us that spring always comes after winter. Several people in the audience quietly wiped away tears. Even the television reporters stopped taking notes for a moment. The judges tasted the cake. One after another, they smiled. The chief judge slowly stood. He looked toward the audience. I believe we have our winner. The entire hall held its breath. He opened the envelope. In first place, he paused. Miss Chloe Johnson. The hall erupted into applause. Mr. Harris threw both hands into the air. I knew it. Chloe stood frozen. She couldn't speak. The chief judge walked over and handed her the championship trophy. You didn't simply bake a cake. You shared your heart. As tears streamed down Chloe's face, she looked toward the audience. Standing near the back was the Korean Mafia boss. Their eyes met. He smiled, not with pride in himself, with pride in her. She had done it on her own. The applause slowly settled. The boss walked onto the stage with permission from the organizers. He stopped beside Chloe. She looked at him in surprise. I thought we agreed to stay apart. He smiled gently. We did, but today, I came to keep a promise. He nodded toward the entrance. The convention center doors slowly opened. Outside stood a beautifully restored corner bakery with a new sign already in place. The sign read, Chloe's Bakery. She covered her mouth. What? He handed her a small envelope. Inside was the deed. The building is yours. No loans. No conditions. No partnership. You own it. She looked at him with tears flowing freely. I can't accept this. He smiled. Yes, you can. You earned it. You proved your talent before anyone knew the truth. You stood back up every time life knocked you down. I only removed the final obstacle. Chloe hugged the deed against her heart. Then she looked at the audience. I spent years believing nobody wanted me. She smiled through her tears. But today I learned something. The right people don't look at your appearance first. They look at your character. They look at your kindness. They look at your heart. The audience rose to its feet in a standing ovation. Outside, customers were already gathering in front of the new bakery. Not because they pitied Chloe. Not because of rumors. Not because of the Korean Mafia boss. They came because they believed in her. Mr. Harris quietly whispered, Your grandmother kept her promise. Chloe looked toward the sky and smiled. She always does. The Korean Mafia boss stood beside her. I have one more question. She looked at him. What is it? He smiled warmly. When your bakery opens tomorrow, may I be your first customer? Chloe laughed through happy tears. You'll have to stand in line like everyone else. He laughed. I'll gladly wait. The crowd laughed with them. For the first time in many years, both of them felt completely free. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who believes that kindness, perseverance, and hope can change a life. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.